The national debt of the United States recently soared past $33 trillion. That is more than 100% of the annual value of all goods and services produced in the United States. This is known as gross domestic product, or GDP. What's more, the annual cost of servicing that debt now exceeds $1 trillion. Both of these numbers are growing every year at an alarming rate. The United States is not alone in creating enormous national debt. European governments and Japan have amassed similar soaring debt and annual spending deficits. France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Greece all have debt-to-GDP ratios that exceed 100%. As the leading industrial countries continue to pile on mountains of debt every year, many observers are beginning to question not only whether the enormous debt can ever be repaid, but also whether the debt will soon exceed the ability of the governments to service the debts. These trends raise ominous questions for investors. In the U.S., the ongoing conflict between President Biden and the Republican-controlled House of Representatives over the debt ceiling raises questions about the ability of the political parties to address the challenge. Public anxiety about federal spending and the deficit will no doubt increase as the national debt and annual budget deficits continue to rise. It is most important to understand the implications of this on fiscal policies and market stability. Japan's situation is no less serious. That country has a debt-to-GDP ratio over 200%. This is the highest among all developed nations. In the Eurozone, Italy and Greece grapple with very high debt levels amid unique economic challenges. Additionally, emerging markets such as Brazil and India are seeing a significant rise in national debt, particularly following the pandemic. Understanding these global debt structures is necessary to plan for strategic international investments. Turning back to the U.S., examining the historical trajectory of the debt-to-GDP ratio is crucial. We saw significant increases in the national debt during the Reagan-Bush era, the 2008 financial crisis, and the 2020 pandemic recession. The roles of entities like the Federal Reserve and Social Security in holding U.S. government debt also have profound implications for future fiscal policy and interest rates, which in turn affect our investment decisions. The Penn-Wharton budget model suggests that we have approximately 20 years before the U.S. debt reaches unsustainable levels under current policy. What that means is that they believe that the nation's debt will reach a point where the government will no longer be able to service the debts. The public debt metric is especially significant for economic assessments and will likely make future investment landscapes very challenging, both domestically and globally. As we consider global debt dynamics, it's clear that rising national debts in developed economies, exacerbated by increased borrowing costs, are reshaping the economic outlook. A global perspective is critical for us as investors, as it affects international markets and offers opportunities for diversifying our portfolios. Economists have debated the most likely outcome from skyrocketing debt. Some have downplayed fears of a cataclysmic crisis. Others believe that the consequences will result in a slow-moving economic demise or an eventual financial collapse. These opinions usually fall into one of three categories: default, inflation, or deep spending cuts coupled with much higher taxes. The first view is that the U.S. will ultimately default on its debt. However, most feel that this is unlikely because the U.S. government is able to borrow from its own currency. A second view is that the government will expand monetary policy and print more money. This is the approach that has been taken by many third-world countries. The third view is that the government would be forced to make dramatic cuts in spending and introduce massive tax increases. This scenario is especially unattractive because it would likely cause a severe contraction in the economy. Whichever of these predictions proves to be true, it is very likely that there will be a very harmful effect on the economy as the government saps more resources from the private sector. Although all of these outcomes are unattractive, these insights allow investors to make informed investment decisions and prepare for future market shifts. Thank you for watching. Remember, always do your research and consult with financial professionals before making investment decisions. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. If you leave a message below, I will respond. You might also like to check out my pages on Facebook and Rumble, the Global Macro Digest, and see my books that are featured there.